actually part of what? Oh, hello. Welcome to Show People, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the UK performing arts industry, covering the latest news, industry issues, what to see and do, and showcasing theatrical talent whilst always trying to inform, educate and entertain. Welcome, ladles and jelly spoons. My name is Andrew Keates. I'm a director and your host. Now, today's guest has only just traded in her tap shoes, reprising her role as Mrs Wilkinson in the UK tour of Billy Elliott after playing Mavis in the West End production of Stepping Out. She's one of my favourite leading ladies, playing roles such as Lady of the Lake in Spamalot, Velma in Chicago, and Annie Oakley in Annie Get Your Gun. Please go mad for the wonderful Anna Jane Casey. And the crowd went wild.
Rent a crowd. I do love a rent a crowd.
Welcome to the show, AJ. Thank you for spending time with me.
My absolute pleasure.
Coming up on today's show, AJ and I will be getting on our soapboxes discussing ageism in the industry. I'll be popping out one or two of my theatrical tips. There's new musical theatre from composer Ed Zanders. And of course, throughout the show, I'll be interviewing Anna Jane Casey all about her life, career, and setting her the odd Show People challenge too. You're listening to the Show People podcast. Welcome to the show, Anna.
Hello, my darling. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. Just so listeners know, so you've come via dropping the children off at school.
School, well, it's been half term last week, hasn't it? Which is the bane of any theatrical mother's life. It really is. And those, you know what, I have full respect for women who are like, I will just be a mum. Once you've experienced theatre, you don't want to do kids 24/7 for 7 days a week. No, it's been grim.
Let the listeners know, how many children have you got?
I have two girls. I have an 11-year-old who is going on about 47 at the moment. And my 5.5-year-old has just hit the sweet spot where they are hilarious. I could have her all day 24/7. It's the 11-year-old who needs a slap.
Are there any aspirations that you're noticing towards musical theatre?
Oh, the little one. It's literally mini me. Yeah,
right.
Which is probably why I'm like, she's hilarious.
Mini Jane Casey.
Nobody needs that in their life. But she's brilliant. She does her ballet lessons and she's always singing and dancing. And we went to see Chic at the O2 on Friday night. Well, my 11-year-old, sorry, it was her birthday the other week. 11-year-old is like, can we go home now? I'm bored. Me and the 5-year-old, yeah, up good times. I was like, there you go. Literally,
the West End's coolest mum. I think we'll do a Show People award later in the year. And the West End's coolest mum goes to Anna Jane Casey. So you have had one heck of a year.
It's been quite bonkers. We were just saying we're in October now. We're nearly at the end of the year. We can finally say goodbye to 2017 and pretend that Donald Trump never happened. But
yes.
It's lovely. Yeah, totally. Vile human being. But then you start to look back at what's gone on because, like I say, my husband's on tour at the moment. He's doing Hairspray, the lovely Graham McDuff, wandering around the country. And I'm pretty much in mum mode. And at that point, I start to look back and go, what have I actually done? And then you go, blimey, it's been mental.
Yeah.
Start of the year, we're up in Sheffield doing Annie Get Your Gun. Then I do a couple of concerts. Then I jump into Stepping Out for a month and about 5-6 weeks. Then Billy Elliott. Then it's coming in towards concert season again for me because Christmas becomes, standing at the Albert Hall doing big arms in a frock, which is always my favourite place to be. So you've reviewed your year and you go, blimey, there's been a lot gone on, as well as nearly murdering my children.
It's not very often that we do get a mum on the show.
Yep.
How do you juggle that?
It's a military operation. I mean, even if you're not in theatre, even if you're a mum and you are a stay-at-home mum, it's a mission. If you are a woman I have a lot of friends at school, obviously they work in offices or they do normal jobs. And we're all just clinging on. We're hanging on by our fingernails, grinning through it all and just hoping that, A, they're fed, the kids, they're clean, and they're not dealing drugs down the estate. That's all you can hope for.
And, I mean, have you ever experienced any sort of resentment because of that from your children as the older one gets older? Is there a sense of that?
Not really. They're very used to it. We have a lot of au pairs. We're very lucky that we can afford and we can have space to have an au pair stay with us. Over my children's life, I've been a parent for 11 years now. And there's been 7 au pairs in and out. Lovely girls and boys from all around the world. And I think that gives them a very rounded experience of others, which is a great thing. And of course, if an au pair's not available, I will always call on my out-of-work actor friends. Can you please just babysit my kids? So my kids are around very theatrical or big or bold or exciting personalities. So I don't think they mind when I cock off to the show. They're like, bye, Mum. They don't care. As long as somebody's reading them a story and putting them to bed, they are fine.
Do you know, I think I'm exactly the same thing. Read me a really good story and pop me to bed.
There you go. It's all we all want, yeah.
Now, we will be interviewing Anna, of course, all about her life and career. But of course, there are one or two Show People challenges.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
And I'm really looking forward to this one because
God.
I've pasted Anna Jane Casey's Spotlight CV on the wall just to fit it into the studio. I would like you...
Oh, Jesus. Here we go. Right, come on.
Within 60 seconds...
Okay.
To try and remember as many credits as you possibly can
my Lord.
on your
All right.
entire
Okay.
CV.
All right.
Anna Jane
Are you
Casey.
going to give me a countdown? Is it like...
Oh, we've got... Anna Jane Casey, we've got dramatic music and everything.
I'm really thrilled. All right.
Okay, your CV is in front of me. Your
Yes.
60 seconds starts now.
Okay, we started at 10 years old. We did Annie. Then we went on to do Oliver. Then I did Gypsy. Then I came down... Oh, I did a show called Our Gracie, which was about Gracie Fields. Then I came to London to do Cats. Then I went on from Cats was Children of Eden, I think. Joseph, Grease, Starlight, West Side Story, Chicago. Oh, my Lord. What else? Sweet Charity, Piaf. Oh, bloody hell. I've had a few drinks since. I've had children since then. Sweet Charity, where are we at? Annie Get Your Gun, Obs, Stepping Out. What else has there been?
30 seconds.
Oh my God! There's a small bit of a wee in my pants now. I pooped myself. What else? What would I like to do? And then there's been bits of telly. We're all done the bill. We've all done Casualty, Holby City. I did a couple of episodes of Doctors. Did one last week. What else has there been? Oh, Beyond the Sea with Kevin Spacey. Don't mention Kevin Spacey.
Not today.
Not today, Kevin. What other... did I say West Side?
I mean,
Did I miss it?
what is just amazing is some of the credits that you've missed. So you probably won't remember that little Fringe production, Spamalot.
Oh, that one, yeah. That's something to do with pythons. I don't know.
Whatever happened to your part?
Whatever did happen, yeah.
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying?
Oh, that was good with Jonathan Groff. What a lovely man.
Flowers for Mrs Harris.
Oh, my God, the best show I've ever done. That's shameful, isn't it?
Billy Elliott.
Smelly Idiot, yeah.
Oh, Bells Are Ringing at the Union.
Oh, one of my faves, yeah.
And
The smelly toilets at the old Union. And every time you open the door, the whiff of shit that came in. It was lovely.
That is no way to talk about your cast. My favourite musical ever written.
Which one?
Sunday in the Park with George.
Sunday in the Park with George. That discordant one. Oh, yeah, that one. Oh,
In all fairness, I knew you wouldn't get through all of
Forbidden
them.
Broadway as well.
Forbidden Broadway.
Oh, I should be shot for that. Done that 3 bleeding times.
And Heartbeat. You were in an episode of Heartbeat.
I was in an episode of Heartbeat, yeah.
What were you in Heartbeat?
1960s. I can't remember. I remember I had a beehive. They backcombed my hair. And in fact, this is camp. Right, let me just qualify. I'm not rich. I just said to Andrew as we were off air, I don't shit fivers. So please pay me. But I do have a very nice Cartier watch, which Heartbeat, so the fee for Heartbeat, I'm going to reveal it, who cares? $2,500 was the fee.
Yeah.
And I spent it all on the watch. Yeah.
I just thought you had robbed it from the set.
Totally robbed it from... No, because it films in Leeds. And I was wandering around Leeds and I thought, and my agent at the time said, oh, your fees come in. How much? 2.5. Spanked it all on the watch.
And how many days filming was that?
About 5. Better than a poke in the ear. And it's
Yeah.
ITV, though, they pay. BBC not.
No.
But we do love the BBC.
You were also, and I didn't realise this, in Starlight Express.
Starlight Express. I was in there for 2 years.
Could you roller skate beforehand?
No, blagged it. So I'd been doing Joseph and his amazing Technicolor handbag with the lovely Nicola Traherne. Now, Nicola Traherne is Anthony Van Last's assistant and has been for years and years. And then she left that and went on to look after Starlight. And she'd said to me, have you ever been in Starlight? And I was like, no. Because it's weird. When you're not in Starlight, when Starlight was around, it was kind of thought of as the show. Well, it was off West End, wasn't it? Because it was in Victoria, at the Victoria Palace. No? Not the Victoria, the Apollo. Victoria.
It was at the Apollo, yeah.
And it was one of those shows where it was like off West End. So I was like, it's not really.
That's really funny now to refer to it as off West End.
Isn't that terrible? And we were all very snobby about it. And it was kind of people who were in Starlight were like, like lads who did street skate, on Saturday. And they weren't really, we were very pure bloods in the 90s. Well, they're not trained.
It's just not Rodgers and Hammerstein, dear.
It's not, dear. And then you do the show and you think, A, this is the hardest thing I will ever have to do, the most challenging, and B, the most rewarding. And it's phenomenal. And I was there for 2 years. I played Buffy and then Dinah. And I was 4th cover Pearl and I got on. There's like 8 covers for every role because everyone's got like knackered feet and ankles. And
Were there any accidents? There must have been.
Oh, there's always, yeah. and you're always falling over and smashing your face, but really exciting. And at the end of the show, when you go, Starlight, you realise you've earned your money.
Well, I've been wanting to get you on this for ages.
Oh.
When I worked out who my first guest of the first season going to be, you were right at the top of my list. So yes, with all of this experience, I hope listeners will realise why I've asked you onto this show, and hopefully people listening might pick up a few tips or two. But before we continue into AJ's career, we are going to clamber upon our soapboxes and discuss an issue.
Indeed.
What would you like to talk about today?
Because I've come to a certain point in my life, I'm very old, close to menopause, ageism. I'd really like to talk about ageism. And I'm not just talking from a feminist crazy point of view. I'm talking from generally across the board. We were both saying earlier, weren't we? You go to see Les Mis now. Jean Valjean is an old man. Why is it played by a 23-year-old with bad grey talc in his hair and lines on his face? Just cast a 40-year-old. It's fine. There are some phenomenal people of 40 who sing, have the gravitas, have the physical weight, as well as the experience to play that role. And the same goes for women as well. You get to a point where, you're not really looked at that. You're either the mum, you're either the granny or the mum, or the young, sexy one. And I think there's so much more scope for that. We're more informed than that now. There's so much. We can be cleverer. I think the industry can be cleverer. And I think it might just be in this country that we not mess it up, but we're a bit worried about casting somebody who is of 35 plus. I think we are. In America, it's so different. When I was on my way here to see the lovely Andrew in his very glamorous fat. Idina Menzel, when she played Elphaba originally on Broadway, which was 2003, the woman was 32 at the time. Mm-hmm. So she's got experience. She's got strength in her voice. She can command a stage. People who have played Elpha in this country are phenomenal, but they seem to be like 21. And I know, having performed at 21, you just don't have the same experience on stage and physically and life to play a leading role. And I don't know why a producer would cast that. That's a really hard thing to give it to a young girl. Unless you have been singing since you are a fetus, you're not going to be able to belt out that 8 shows a week. You're going to be knackered. And I think that's proved it. There's been times when certain ladies who've played it have not been able to carry it through. And it worries me that we're kind of we're creating a little demon, if you will. Let's give it to the young girl. Maybe it's because they're cheaper. Maybe a producer says, well, I can only have to pay her £1,000 a week. Whereas if I get somebody who's of an age, she's going to want $3,000 a week, which is what an Elphaba should be paid at least. That's a lot of money in a big commercial show. And I wonder whether it's that. And the same goes for fellas. Like I say, your Valjeans are now 25-year-old men. It's not right. It's not right.
What about those who were in the business, for example, when there was no such thing as a musical theatre training course and had to learn it on the job?
On the job.
And I just feel we talk about the theatre as this wonderful family and this community, and we all look after each other. But certainly there seems to be a sell-by date when you get into that sort of 30s, 40s area.
Totally.
And then a dark period, and then you're old enough to play the granny and Billy Elliott.
Nana. Yeah. Or you're the old man shuffling about the back doing the comedy part. My husband, like I say, the lovely Graham McDuff, he's 48 now. He doesn't look 48. He probably looks mid to late 30s, but he's right in that stage as well. So it works across the board. He doesn't look old enough to be the dads in Mamma Mia because they cast the dads a bit grey and a bit paunchy. Sorry, dads are in Mamma Mia at the moment. But they do because, you've got to have some kind of age difference between the young girls. So my husband's struggling as well because he doesn't look 48, even though he is a dad. So, and that goes across the board. The fabulous Sally Ann Triplett, who, she's older than me. I'm 45. I don't know exactly how old Sal is, but she's older than me. She still looks amazing. But because the casting director knows her age, they're not going to see her to Baby Do Roxy in Chicago, where she's played it, and she could do it standing on her head again and again and again. But they go, no, because you're of an age. And that's wrong. It's rude. We should look at how somebody works on stage. For God's sake, we're all actors. You can age up and you can age down. And as long as it's not ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't want to go in and play Eponine. I would look foolish. And of course, I know, know your limits is also a good thing. I always say, know your limits. But to discount people because the casting director might know that they are now 40 plus, I think is wrong, because I think you can bring so much more as a performer when you've had that experience. There is something which I wonder if performers are aware of this, but a panel, for example, is never allowed to ask what somebody's age is. And certainly for this, because you should only be asked your playing age. Yes, yeah.
Because, of course, as long as you look right, then otherwise that's where the ageism creeps in.
Right. That's good to know.
But I also like the idea of earning your stripes.
Yeah.
That, you know, when we look back at some of these iconic productions and these iconic people, the fact that they would have started, certainly in the older days, in the likes of Rep, in regional theatre, certainly when there were more theatres before Thatcher closed most of them down.
Don't get me started.
Don't get me started. I don't think sorry if there are any Tories listening to this.
I doubt
but
it.
if you've been listening, I think you'll realise I'm quite liberal. But certainly when there were these opportunities that people could graft away and, you know, people becoming acting ASMs, for example, and working out how to make a cup of tea for the director and all that nonsense. And I just like the idea of my leading men and women to have not only have the talents to do the role, because of course that's first and foremost, but also I want to look at leading man, leading lady and see a page and a half of credits that they've done and they've grafted. And not only as an audience member, as a director, to know that simple things like understanding the etiquette of how to lead a company, how to set an example. Yeah. Take someone like Imelda Staunton.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a human being on the planet that would be disappointed looking at their programme going, oh, Imelda Staunton's in it. An extraordinary woman.
Yeah.
Done her time.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard anecdotally from people that have worked with her, when she has these leading roles, you can count every couple of months on her throwing a party for the company, taking the younger members under their wing. Yep. And you just go, that feels right to me, rather than having a cast all of the same age, you know, going out to a bar every night, getting pissed, and maybe not having those old school values. Maybe we're old fashioned. I don't know.
I've stolen the lovely Chita Rivera's famous thing, which is every Saturday buy donuts. Just buy donuts for the company. Go to Krispy Kreme or another donut outlet and just buy 3 boxes of donuts, because you're on a fat wage. You really are. There's no denying it. If you are in a commercial musical theatre and you're playing the lead, you're on a lot of money. You can afford 30 quid every Saturday to buy people donuts. And I've done that for about 15 years now on different shows. And when I was in Billy Elliott and then Ruthie was taking over from me, the fabulous Ruthie Henshaw, mad as a box of frogs, but I love her. Good mate of mine. All right, Ruth. We're all crackers. And she said, is there anything I should know? I said, right, tip the dresser. And this is what you should give. Lovely Sean, who's the famous dresser of Mrs Wilkes. And I said, and buy donuts. Really? I said, just buy the bloody donuts. People really appreciate it because you're leading from the front. It's simple things, like you say, flowers for people, or if it's somebody's birthday, you organise the cake. You get the champagne after we've done a couple of months. In my room at the end of the show, here's the champagne. When I did Stepping Out at the start of the year, Amanda Holden, what a lovely woman. Every Saturday, as you came off the stage, gin in Amanda's room. She was one of the producers, so she wanted to keep her people happy, but that doesn't cost her a lot. And it's fine. Everyone goes, oh, lovely, you've got a gin and tonic as you walk off. Lovely. Just simple things like that. And I don't know whether that is taught or whether you would know it instinctually if you were 19 years old playing the lead. It should be told. And that's what we mean. If you've worked through, you've seen that happen to you as an ensemble member, and you go, I'm going to do that when I become the lead. And that's what I think you should do.
The most important thing for me is just appropriate casting.
Mm-hmm.
There are perhaps, this is certainly a generalisation, so I apologise, but there are perhaps things that happen in later life, like becoming a parent, where actually it's vital that we sustain and we try and look after people of an older age group, because if they can't pay their bills, if they can't pay their mortgage or raise their children, then we lose people of extraordinary value.
Yep, it really is true. I've just thought of something that I remember reading years ago, which is disgusting. So I think it was when Marty McCutcheon left My Fair Lady and the fabulous Joanna Riding took over. Now, Jo was a brilliant Eliza. Of course she is. The woman's got awards hanging out her handbag. And there was a review, and I don't know what paper it was. I'd like to think it's the Daily Mail, the Daily Right Wing, as I like to say. And they'd said...
Daily Fail.
Daily Fail. Joanna Riding is fantastic as Eliza, but it's better if you sit further back in the theatre because she's too old to play
you're
it.
joking.
And I thought, that is despicable. It's, for a start, Jo looks 27. I don't know how old she is. She's about my age. She looks incredible. And how rude. And why should it be judged on how somebody looks? It doesn't matter. If they're doing the part and if the people are clapping and the people are laughing, there you go. You talked about Flowers for Mrs Harris, the one I missed off my bloody CV list. Disgusted with myself. It was one of the most brilliant things I've done in the last couple of years. That was such a great play. There were 14 of us in it. 10 of us were women, and the majority of those women were over 40. There's myself, Nicola Sloan, Clare Burt,
Rebecca Kane,
Dame Kane, I curtsy at her feet, the original Cosette in Les Mis, if people don't know who she is. And we were all of an age, and it was the most wonderful thing to have that experience. And, sometimes people might be sitting out there listening to this going, oh, here she comes with a feminist drum. No, it's not that. It's about having respect for people. And I'm not just talking about women, men as well.
I was working with David Burt on Jacques Breller's Alive and Well, living in Paris. David, of course, was the original Enjolras in Les Mis. And a lovely actor called Michael Colburn.
I know that name.
Michael was playing, I think he still is playing, Marius in the West End.
Cool.
And I do know Michael. And Michael contacted me via Facebook and he went, can I meet David? And I said, yeah, sure, why? And he went, well, he originated my role and I'd really like to buy him a drink.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's nice.
Now, Michael is in his early 20s. And I had so much respect for Michael for the fact that he wanted to meet David.
Yeah.
And I think they sat down, had a pint and just told lots of stories about how David, anyone who knows David Burt, he is well known for a joke or a prank or two.
He is the corpse king. He's a genius at making everybody else wet themselves and he stays absolutely stoic. He's brilliant.
And also just a human being that has worked in this industry for decades.
Yeah.
But David told me a story about the 10th anniversary production. You know, the big one they did with Michael Ball and everything.
Was it the Albert Hall, I think?
It was the Albert Hall. It was
I went
the
to
Albert
see
Hall.
it, yeah. And they dragged them all on, didn't they? It was every Marius ever been, yeah.
But David told me the story that he got a phone call from Cameron's office going, we're doing a 10th anniversary celebration of Les Mis. Will David do the concert? And David went, of course, love, be my pleasure. And he said to his agent, he said, you couldn't get them to send the score again because I can't remember everything I did when we did it before. And the score arrived and it was just the ensemble parts. And David called his agent and went, where's all the Enjolras stuff?
Yeah.
I've just got the ensemble. They must have sent me the wrong script. And she checked. And he said, no, David will be one of the ensemble singers. We're gonna get this new young guy from Broadway to do it.
Wow.
And David said, well, fuck him. And didn't do it. He said, no, I originated that part.
Yeah.
He said, I was the one who did it when it was 9 days long.
Do you know what I mean? And worked through all that. It did when it, like you say, it was 4 hours long and worked through it all and worked with Claude, Michelle and all that and just cut it down. Have some bloody respect. Well, Rebecca Kane, Dame Kane says the same. She said, that they asked, would you like to come along? And yeah, sure. And would you like to be the third whore on the left? No, I was fucking original Cosette. Yeah. Even if you've got me standing with the girl who's now doing it from then to now, I only want 2 minutes. It's fine. Not a dream. And the other girl goes, what? And does the top note.
Yeah.
You've given somebody the respect that they deserve. Come on now.
Well, everybody, what do you think? Do you think that, that Anna Jane and I are just making sure there's work for us in future? Are we the two, somebody said to me, listening to the soapbox, it was like the two old guys and the Muppets sometimes. Yes. So I'd love to hear what you think. Now, there's a great way to get in touch and it's really starting to take off. Go to our new Show People podcast listeners forum where you're able to debate and talk with other listeners about the issues that we're talking about. In fact, recently we had some suggestions about the role of the critic in the industry. So please do get involved, leave some comments. It's there as a platform for you to talk about any grievances and for everybody to learn. And you can do that at facebook.com/Show People Podcast.
Hello, my dears. You have the ineffable and probably undeserved pleasure of listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates. This is Stephen Fry wishing you a wonderful listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. So let's go and talk about a little Anna Jane Casey.
Oh, no.
Where did you grow up? What was your background? I grew up
in Lancashire, in a little village called Rottenstall in Lancashire. And Jane Horrocks was from the same area. And Joe Riding's from round the corner. And literally, it's Lancashire Hills. We're talking, the Dark Satanic Mills. It's all that. And I was a very, very overactive child. I'm an overactive adult, so Christ knows what I was like as a child. And my parents took me to everything to try and wear me out. There was cheerleading, there was horse riding, gymnastics. I was going to be a gymnast as a tiny child. And then I got myself a hernia when I was 7. It's quite painful if anybody's ever had one of them. And the doctor said, you should try something a bit more gentle. Try, I don't know, ballet dancing. knackered. Have you seen Darcy Bustle's feet? Yeah, like Hobbit's feet, dear. She's hardly like taking it easy. So I went to dance classes and then started to kind of audition for shows that would come to our biggest town is Manchester, our biggest city. So stuff that would come to Manchester, lots of touring shows. This is early 80s. And my first show was Annie. I was in Annie. I was Tessie. Oh my goodness, the one with one plait up there and one down there. And I did that at the Palace Theatre in Manchester and loved it. And knew then there was like a moment of, duh, like you could hear the angels singing when we were in rehearsals and we're scrubbing the floor. I remember looking down the line at all the girls scrubbing. I was 10 and going, this is what I want to do. This is brilliant. And just from there, I went to a little local dance school in Bury, which is in Lancashire. Did all my training, did all my exams, did a lot of dance festivals as a kid. Blue eyeshadow and glittery hair gel, all of that.
So much has changed.
So much. Here I am in blue shadow. Yeah, could you imagine if I'd walked in looking like that? And then when I was 16, there was we used to get the Stage newspaper. There were 2 newspapers in my house, the Manchester Evening News and the Stage. Says a lot really about my market trading family, doesn't it? Stagey bastards. And there was an advert for Cats and it down in London. And I said to my mum, I'd like to audition. And she said, that's on the day when you've got your history GCSE exam that morning. I said, it's all right, don't matter. We can do the GCSE history from 9 till 11, get on the half-11 train and get down to London. Went down, auditioned and got the job. That was it.
And you were 16?
16, yeah. Cheap. Cheap and very bendy. That's how I got the job.
And can you even remember what grade you got for history?
I got an A-. I've got 9. I was saying that this is all in my cabaret, which I do. In fact, it's the last time I've done it, so there'll be a new cabaret next year. But in my cabaret, The Life in a Day, I kind of tell my life and how I've got here. And because we're all faking it. You might have done 15 years at RADA, you might have done all the training that you have, but we're all still faking it. And I really am faking it because I did 9 Gs. The only qualifications I have are 9 GCSEs, and I've got all my IDTA exams and my Royal Ballet. I've did up to elementary in ballet. That's about it. Faking it.
So you really did learn on the job because you didn't
totally.
actually do, the traditional route of going to a big drama school.
No, I didn't go to a vocational college. I didn't go to arts or London Studio Centre or any of them, Mount View. Didn't do any of that. And with hindsight, I kind of think maybe I should have, or at least gone to do an acting course because I'm still learning. Actors still learn and you learn as you get older about yourself and about the way of the world. But there are times when I go, oh, because if you work with a director who is, very classically trained and they'll say, now we're just going to action this scene. That means nothing to me because I haven't done that actioning training. Or we're going to look at Shakespeare. When I did a production of A Comedy of Errors at Regent's Park with the lovely Philip Franks as the director. He's usually on Dictionary Corner on 15 to 1 or whatever it is.
Countdown.
All them daytime
Dictionary
shows.
Corner on 15 to 1 sounds redundant.
That's too many gins, that is. So he was a lovely, lovely man. And I'd said to him in the audition, I've never done Shakespeare. I've covered it in my GCSE English, but I've never trained in it. He said, darling, it's fine. And he was really lovely and he helped me through it. But a lot of directors will want you to come in and you want to have studied Shakespeare. And I never did because, like I say, at 16, I left school and came to do Cats. So I'm a bit like learning on the job. But we all learn as we go, don't we? I mean, if you work in the banking industry, if you start as a teller and you want to move up to a managerial position, you've got to learn as you do it. So I don't think, as much as there are a little part of me, like I say, which wishes I'd done a 2-year course at RADA or at Bristol Old Vic, I'm kind of, in a way, I'm like, do you know what? We're all right. We're muddling through. And my sister's the same. My sister, Natalie Casey, she didn't train either. And she landed Hollyoaks when she was 15, once again through an audition. I think it was in our local paper again. We're looking for new Hollyoaks actors. And so the pair of us are blagging it as we go.
So what was it like being 16 working in the West End?
Hilarious. I can distinctly remember the first day. You start rehearsals, don't you, at 10 o'clock in the morning? But they said, would you like to watch the show tonight? I was like, yeah, of course I would. So, well, if you can just hang around backstage. So I'm hanging around backstage and I've been taken into one of the girls' dressing rooms now then. The ladies in there. I'm 16 and the next youngest person in was, I think, probably 21. There's a big difference between a 16-year-old virgin from Lancashire and a 21-year-old girl who's been, she's been a commercial dancer. I can distinctly remember as I walked into this dressing room, really innocent, and there's a woman with her legs wide open and she's got a cat's wig on and makeup and nothing else, stark naked, and she's saying, no, this is my labia majora and this is my labia minora. And I'm like, looks, I'd only ever seen my own vagina and my mother's, not up close. Like my mother didn't put my vagina in my face, that would be quite ill. But that's all I'd seen. And there's naked women wandering around and people are very free, as we know in theatre, we're all wandering around in our pants. I'd never seen anything like it. My eyes must have looked like on stalks, like Jim Carrey and the mask like that. And you get very used to it. Within 2 weeks, I'm going, is this my arsehole or is this my clitoris? Now I know the difference, thankfully. It was a very, very eye-opening experience, but very free and very exciting. Very exciting.
Well, because, of course, there's lots of things coming up about, young people in the paper at the moment and whatever. It's very interesting because the theatre, of course, there are characters that are coming out of the woodwork that have perhaps abused power. Did you find that you were very nurtured or were there times where you were frightened?
Do you know what I was thinking the other week? I mean, that whole Harvey Weinstein thing that's come out, and now it's coming out in different areas for men and women. That last year when all the footballers who said when we were being coached as kids, we were often touched in the showers by our coaches, and that's really wrong. Professional footballers, as well as actors, anybody their power should never be taken away from them by somebody else. But I think I was flashed at once on the tube. Somebody got their willy out, which is just pathetic more than anything. But thankfully, touch wood, nothing has ever happened to me like that, and I've never felt uncomfortable. I maybe felt somebody's maybe used their power, but not in a sexual way, and definitely not in a degrading way. They might have gone, do that better, but that's just a director being gobby. But I've never felt like I've felt uncomfortable in a room. Maybe it's my ugly mug, I've no idea. But,
no, not true at all.
Stop it. But no, I think because I'm quite gobby anyway, people will go, I'm not going to mess with her, because I'll just say, no, I'm not doing that, because I've always been a gobby bugger. Thankfully, nothing like that's happened to me. And the girls in my dressing room were very kind, because they knew I was the youngest, and they were really kind to me. Richard Lloyd King, who is now in the Book of Mormon, Richard is my surrogate dad and always has been. And when I was in Cats, he was playing Rum Tum Tugger, and he was probably mid-20s at the time, and he's looked after me a lot. So there's been a lot of really kind people in my life.
Now, you would go on to do shows such as Joseph in the Amazing Technicolour Dreamcoat.
Indeed.
As well as Grease, Starlight Express, and then a role comes up which is pretty extraordinary, which is Anita in West Side Story.
Yes, yeah.
I would like to concentrate on doing that extraordinary show. Where was it? Who were you working with?
So this was the first time that I was going to be doing a tour. It was the first tour of West Side. It was the 50-year anniversary, I think. Yes, it was. It was the 50 years since the show had been created. And they were taking it out on tour. So it's 97. It's 19. No, it was 40 years then, because it was 57, wasn't it, West Side? Yeah. 40 years on, they're doing this West Side Story tour. We were taught the show by an original cast member. The guy played Action, I think, in the original cast member. On Broadway, and he looked after, I think his name is Alan Johnson, or that was who put our show on. And so we had all the original choreography, because obviously at that point, West Side was very cloistered. You couldn't change it. Now they've done new modern versions. But I've known that show since I was a kid, because when I did my dance festivals with my blue eyeshadow and my back-combed hair, my song and dance was, I like to be in America. Really northern. Okay, by me in America. So when we got to do that and we're learning the mambo, dum 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 dum, I'm sobbing. I'm in rehearsal. I'm in bits. I can't believe my luck. And I looked across the room at this dark man who's playing Bernardo, and he's crying as well. And he became my husband. Nearly 20 years of marriage. Yes.
So you met on West Side?
We met on West Side, yeah.
And it was I'm looking at your CV. Was that 2 years?
Did 2 years. We toured it for 14 months.
Right. And
then we came into town. We did 2 theatres, because the management at the time didn't think it would do very well. Well, it's the greatest musical of all time. Of course it's going to do well. Come on. So we were at the Prince Edward, where Aladdin is. We were there for a while, and then we moved to the Prince of Wales because the show was doing so well.
2 very different theatres.
Oh, very different. And I think in total we had 2.5 years by the time it came to the end of it that we did West Side for. But I'd do it again tomorrow. Really would.
How old were you by that stage?
I was 26 when we met. Yeah, Graham and I. Yeah.
So, I mean, look, it's quite unusual, because I'm used to going through somebody's CV, and of course the West End was in a different place, but I'm used to talking about, what Kim Ismay refers to as the feral years, where there's patches, but you really have gone from show to show to show to show to show. There must have been some gaps. What were the things that you were doing? And I always ask this question, because I know there's lots of people who are leaving drama school now who are looking for ways just to pay the bills.
Indeed.
What have been some of the jobs that you've done?
What have I done? And I mean, to
survive.
Yeah, masterclasses. I mean, God bless you. You invited me to do one about 18 months ago, which is lovely. You can sit in a room for 3 hours with a big group of students, and you can kind of give them a load of spiel, and they love it, and it's really rewarding for you. And that's a good thing to do. I've also started to I play my ukulele now. I mean, it's not the most difficult of instruments. It's not, I'm not grade 8 on the violin, but doing something like that. So now I can go to a bar and say, listen, do you need somebody to entertain for an hour or two and give us 150 quid cash in hand and I will sing songs for an hour and a half. There you go. Well, there's your food paid for. My husband, like I say, is an actor as well. We've been very, very lucky that we've been able to pass the baton. So if I'm looking after the kids, which I am at the moment, he's on tour and looking after us, and vice versa. When my second girl was born, she's 5.5 now, but she was my lucky charm. As soon as I popped her out, I didn't stop working. So she's been raised by daddy, and she is just the most hilarious kid because my husband's very funny. So you just make do. You just do. There are ways and means. I'm doing another masterclass down in Brighton at the end of the year for some students. You just have to do anything. Do anything.
I will be, and for listeners, I will be booking AJ again, and the masterclasses will start up. So yes, do count on that. I will let you know. Probably early next year is when I'll bring them all back.
I'd love to.
So continuing on, you've gone from obviously Cats, Joseph Grease, Starlight, West Side, and then there's a show that I know nothing about, and that's an unusual thing.
Wild Wild Women. So this was, it was at the Orange Tree in Richmond, which is a teeny tiny theatre. And it was the first time I'd done something that was so up close, where the audience are literally sitting on your lap. And we had to do a pre-show. Now, that strikes fear into any actor's heart. We're going to do a pre-show. So if
all of my
doesn't
productions
know,
have pre-shows, so I'm just...
If anyone doesn't know, basically, it's not lights down, show starts. This is while you're coming into the audience and sitting down and eating your Maltesers and going, Auntie Janice, have you got your gin? There's an actor next to you going, well, how are you today? Because it was set in the Wild Wild West. And I can remember the first night and being terrified. And David Grinrod, the very famous casting director, who's a good mate of mine, David had come to see the press night. And I'm wandering through with my basket of victuals and I'm like, well, hi there, sir. And he just went, what the fuck are you doing, dear? I was like, it's a pre-show, honey. So, and it was a great show. Tim Sheeder directed it, who now looks after Regent's Park. And it was a really, really interesting show. It's a little musical. It was an actor muso show. And Sevan Stefan was in it. Now, there's an actor. Where's he gone? Sevan Stefan played Lautrec in the show. Lautrec.
Which Kim Ismay was in. Indeed. We were talking about in the previous episode.
Sevan's a fantastic actor. He's also in Guys and Dolls. He played Big Julie, and he's a little fella. He's only about 5 foot tall. Phenomenal actor. So he was in it playing the judge of the town. And it was a story of when basically the women withdrew sexual favours because the men were always out every night getting pissed. So the men are out getting pissed and fighting, and the women have had enough. So what they say is, well, you ain't getting none of this no more. You ain't getting no poontang. So we took away the sex, and it's this hilarious musical based on that. So there's a lot of kind of men rubbing their thighs in Act 2 being sad, and the women are stitching blankets going, they ain't going to get any of this, until they change their ways. And it was because they were fighting and drinking, and yeah. Maybe that's what we should do with Trump.
I'll have to look it up.
If Melania just shut her legs, maybe that would be a better place.
And of course, I'd be foolish not to ask. So you've done Chicago a couple of times.
I have,
now.
Yes.
And you've done that, that tiny role, Velma.
That tiny role. Well, I was tiny Velma. So originally, Bebe Neuwirth, who is my size, 5'3" and a bit, is playing Velma. Well, then they always had these leggy girls, these Uta Lempers or Nicola Hughes, stunning women. And then it's like midget AJ comes along, and that was great fun to do. But I did that over 9 years, in and out over 9 years. I did that show. And myself and Josephina Gabrielle, love that woman. We went in first of all as Roxy and Velma. And it was our cash cow for a while, because you do it for like 6 months and then you'd leave it for a few, and then they'd ask you back. And towards the end of its run, when you knew that Chicago was coming to the end, like, there's no more Heat magazine stars to get in this bloody show. We're going to have to take this thing off. And Joe and I rang each other and was like, oh my God, quick, we've got to get in for the last blast before they take the show off, because it's a good earner and a lovely show to do.
Looking at all of these early shows that you've did, because of course, essentially your training was training in the West End.
In the ensemble of big commercial shows, yeah.
What were the mistakes you were making as a young performer that perhaps you look back on as slightly more wizened leading lady going, oh, if I could pop back and clip myself around the ear for a couple of things, what would they be?
And do you know what? It's all just that exuberance of youth and not being in control of yourself, your own emotions, which my 11-year-old is going through at the moment. So when I did Joseph, I was 18 years old. I did it from 18 to 20. And, getting drunk and whatever, and then going into work with a raging hangover and being an absolute git to everyone in the room. Don't speak to me like that. Now, if I go in and I don't feel well, I'll say to everybody, do you know what, guys? I'm feeling a bit down tonight, or I'm feeling a bit rough or whatever, so let's just do the show. But I was quite I'm feisty anyway, but I would be angry. I would throw things. Don't speak to me like that. Just not be that much of a dick. Don't be a dick is what I always say. Turn up on time, be nice, and don't be a dick. And I was a bit of a dick at that point. But that was because I was a teenager. I was 18, 20 years old. So that's what I would change about myself. I'd say, if you are having a bad day, don't take it into the dressing room, or go in and explain, say, I'm having a bad day, so just ignore me. I'm just going to sit in the corner with my headphones on. If you're going to be the leading lady, or if you're going to be up there, lead the company, encourage people, be kind. There's a great Henry James quote that I say to my children: to be human is 3 things. Be kind, be kind, be kind. All you need to be. Because what we do, the entertainment business is, yes, it's hard and it's not as glamorous as people think, when there's mice running across your makeup when you play in the London Palladium because it's a shit tip, because there's all mice backstage. It's not glamorous. But we are blessed in what we do. And I know that's #blessed is said too much. But it is, I have cousins who are still back in Lancashire and they work for the council and they have to clear drains and they hate their job. As hard as it can be, because the wage earnings on our work, you can either be earning £3,000 a week or 150 quid working at the union. But you still get to do something that's really exciting. So that's a lovely thing. So give it back, be kind, be a nice leading lady, be a kind person in the company, and give people encouragement. If you see somebody doing some great work and they're your fellow cast member, go, do you know what, that was brilliant. Because we all need to be told we're great. And if somebody, also on the flip side, if somebody's been a dick, you have your quite right to go up to them and say, you're being a bit of a dick. So just be honest and be kind. And that's, I think, what I would tell to people.
It's talking to you about Chicago a little bit earlier. You've reminded me of one of my favourite anecdotes, which was when on Broadway, Gwen Verdon was going to be off. But of course, she didn't want it announced because, of course, the show was the biggest show that Broadway had seen for years. And so Gwen Verdon was off. And as the audience entered, this voice came over the tannoy going, ladies and gentlemen, the role of Roxy Hart will not be played tonight by Miss Gwen Verdon. And you saw all of the audience, jump to their feet, heading to the door. And whoever was on the tannoy was obviously a masterful storyteller. And just as everybody was getting to the door, just went, the role will be played by Miss Liza Minnelli. And lots of people go, oh, I think I forgot my programme. I'll just pop back. And, and I think, Chicago was around for a long time. And I think there were some dubious decisions in casting, perhaps, which may have sold a lot of tickets and probably worked for the producers. But as a show, I always found it terribly sad to see one of Kendra and Ebb's iconic shows and redefining shows with actually some brilliant political messages in it and superb, I was quite sad earlier hearing you say, I'm ringing my feminist bell, when actually, no, you're just desperately asking for recognition and equal rights, which I don't think is ringing a feminist bell. I think is just being a human. That show is superb about what it talks about, empowering women. Tell me a little bit about that extraordinary show and what you got out of it.
It is a great one. I can remember auditioning for it, and I'd been doing West Side, and so I was kind of in that leading lady band, if you will, your Joe Ryden, your Janie D and all that. And my agent had said, oh, got an audition for Chicago. And I was like, that's a leggy girl's role. Come on now. He said, no, go in. So we do the dance round, and then you get cut again, and then you do a bit of the reading. And Chicago it's a sensual show. I wouldn't say it's a sexy show. We're not strippers, we're not hookers, but you are literally wandering around in your pants. But the great thing about that show was owning it, was being in your knickers, but not being, it's not coquettish. This is, I'm strong, I just happen to be in my pants. And you'd look out the audience and you could literally stare somebody down, they would get really uncomfortable. There's a great line that Scott Farris, who is the resident director on the show, and Gary Christ, who is the choreographer, he looks after all choreography. And Gary worked with Bob Fosse for years, and he said there's a couple of things, the look, the Chicago look, those posters, those women like staring you down, the look should say, I'm going to fuck you, then I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to fuck you again while you're dead. That's the look you need to put in your eyes. And to have that strength as a woman, because usually you are the girly role or you're, the shy one, to have that strength was brilliant, was really ballsy. And they were very kind to us in those auditions. Didn't matter if I'm not 5'8" and I don't have long legs. I'm a little stocky dancer. They said, that's great. Then you bring that, you bring that strength, or you don't be willowy like Uta Lemper. I'm not going to ooze all around the set. I'm going to give it some balls. So they really allowed you to do the part, which is a set role, but in your own way. And that was very revealing. And I think that's why the show lasted so long, because you did have changes of character, and your Roxys, sometimes you had a very girly, pretty Roxy, sometimes you had a kooky Roxy, and they encouraged that. It wasn't a formulaic way of doing it. So that was very exciting to do. What else? And I'm going to say it was great to have all the girls leading and the men being a little subservient, because it doesn't happen very often. And I wouldn't want that all the time. I love men. Fellas are great. But it's nice sometimes to kind of recognise that the women can be strong too.
AJ and I were talking before we started the podcast in my kitchen over a cup of tea or
Nice.
a brew.
A brew.
And just talking about Annie Get Your Gun, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But just to rebalance things, I can imagine the satisfaction that comes sometimes where you go, or lads picking up a libretto going,
Yeah.
we're not leading this. Am I just a love interest that comes on to be objectified? And women going, yes, different, isn't it?
Yeah. Wakey, wakey. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to continue talking to AJ about her career, but let's delve into my theatrical tips. And my first recommendation is actually something I was lucky enough to catch the other night. And it really is an extraordinary immersive production. Make sure you book your tickets immediately for this thrilling, young and moving production of Hair at the Vaults, London. It's a bit like a mini Woodstock. From the moment the audience arrive, the Vaults is transformed into an immersive 60s venue with psychedelic, innovative design, iconic artwork and hippie flower power. With 60s themed drinks plus vintage 60s stalls, then the audience move through to an intimate theatre seating just 200, where the genuinely youthful cast live the character, revealing every emotion and pretty much everything else up close and personal through Hair's drug-filled journey. It's still groundbreaking at the age of 50. I had a great time, and Andy Coxon is just the most extraordinary leading man. Hair plays until the 13th of January 2017, and to book tickets, visit hair50.com. Everybody's talking about Jamie at the Apollo Theatre. Jamie New is 16 and lives on a council estate in Sheffield. He doesn't quite fit in, and he's terrified about the future. Jamie is going to be a sensation. Supported by his brilliant, loving mum and surrounded by his friends, Jamie overcomes prejudice, beats the bullies, and steps out of the darkness into the spotlight. John McCrae, Josie Walker, Tamsin Carroll, Mina Anwar, Lucy Shorthouse, and Phil Nicol lead a 24-strong company and an 8-piece band that sends you out on a feel-good bubble of happiness. Hailed as Billy Elliott for today's generation, this fabulous, funny, feel-good brand new musical sensation hits London with catchy new songs by lead singer-songwriter of The Feeling, Dan Gillespie Sells, and writer Tom McCrae. Plays from the 6th of November until the 21st of April 2018 at the Apollo Theatre. To find out more, visit nemaxtheatre.com. And the Union Theatre is proud to present Peter Nicholls' Olivier Award-winning play Privates on Parade, directed by Kirk Jameson and starring 2017 Drama Desk Award winner Simon Green and apprentice candidate Sam Curry. It plays at the 22nd of November to the 17th of December 2017 at the Union Theatre in Southwark. For tickets, visit www.uniontheatre.biz. Are you involved in a show that you'd like to tell me about or you'd like me to inform our listeners about? Do add info@arian-productions.com to your press mailing list. And if it's something that I like the sound of, I may just play it on our show.
Hello, this is Kim Ismay, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates, and I hope you're having a wickedly interesting time.
So approximately what age did you feel that you had really been established as a performer,
That's
that you
a good
had
one.
that brand,
Yeah.
and I want to find a much nicer word than that, but where people go, oh, is Anna Jane Casey available?
Yeah.
Rather than, hi, I'm Anna Jane Casey.
Right, please like me, which I'm still doing. Please like me.
Me too.
And I think it was after doing Anita and West Side. So I'm 26. And I think it comes, I don't know about you, but I know as for myself that I learnt to say no when I was 26. Because before that, you want to be a pleasing person, especially in what we do. Yeah, I can do that. Can you do 17 backflips across stage? Yeah, I can do that. 8 shows in, I've knackered all my back, but I'm still going to do it. At 26, I learned to say no. I'm actually not going to do that. And I'm not going to take that. And I'm not going to be treated like that. And I'm not going to, I won't do your show for 50 quid a week. I want £52. Never want to be greedy. But that's for me, I found my own maturity as a person at 26 and as a performer at 26.
Where did that come from? Was that an incident or?
I think it was just doing West Side. When we had Arthur Lawrence, because when we moved the show from the tour into town, Mr. Arthur Lawrence, God rest his soul, came to redirect us. The writer of bloody West Side Story came in. I have my West Side script is signed by Arthur, which when I'm old and grey and I'll take it on Antiques Roadshow and it'll be worth 20 quid. And I'll be like, damn it, I thought it'd be worth that.
I'll give you 30.
Yeah, I'll give you 30.
Sold.
And it says, to Graham and AJ, what a wonderful couple, my Anita and my Bernardo, Arthur Lawrence. So, and I think it was through him, because he used to take me to one side and he'd tell me the story of where Anita was and who she was, because she was based on a real person, an immigrant girl who he knew, who lived in the area, in the neighbourhood, and she was a ballsy girl. You know, she did run this dress shop. And he said, and she had strength. And he said, and you have strength as a person. You have to now take that and put it into the character on stage. And that's when I thought, yeah, actually, that's fine. And, you know, as much as we want to be nice people, be kind, you're not going against the grain if you say, nah, I'm all right, I don't want to do that and I don't want to work. Can you work till 10 o'clock tonight? No, actually, I can't. And it's fine to say no, as long as you say it pleasantly. Don't go fuck yourself and storm out. But you can say, nah, I'm not going to do that, or that's fine, I won't be treated like that, and have your voice and have your opinion, because I think that's one thing I've learned, that most directors and casting directors, they want you as a person as well as the character. There's no point going dressed as the person for an audition and being that person, because you're just you're a puppet. It's not a collaborative art, which is what theatre should be. So yeah, 26 when I really said, actually, I have an opinion about that, or can I have this line? Can I do this line like this, and this is why? Now,
there's a section in your CV which makes me smile between sort of 2003 and 2005, where you appear to have a really remarkable relationship, with the Sheffield Crucible. And obviously the Watermill Theatre in Newbury.
Yes.
And the reason I mention it, and indeed where we're sat in my flat, there's a big old poster of Jacques Brel is alive and well and living in Paris looming over us. And you got to play Edith Piaf in
I did.
Piaf.
Indeed.
As well as Mabel in Mac and Mabel.
Mabel, yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, two very drug-addled women.
No, but two...
But massively different.
Properly written, well-formed.
And real people as well. You know, Mabel Normand was a 1920s silent film star, and Edith Piaf was a crazy chanteuse from Paris, you know, and doing that's mad when you get to play real people. That's quite trippy. Because you have to do your backstory as much as you go, oh God, is this really wanky that I'm reading, like all the books about Edith Piaf, or doing all my investigation of silent movies. But you have to, you know, and it really matters. You know, from Mr. and Mrs. Smith from Billericay, you just go and see a show. They might not care, but you've put so much more into it that when you do your show, you know, I don't claim to sound like Edith Piaf. I wouldn't really want to do a cheesy impression of him. It's not an impressionist show. It doesn't have to be. You know, so many different people have played it. Elena Roger, Francis Raffell's done Piaf. So many people have done it. I don't think we all went like that through.
Although that's excellent. That is exactly brilliant.
Just wiggle your larynx with your thumb. And so that was great to do. You know, we did it in our own way. And Piaf is a great play with music because it's a play about this woman's life and how crazy it was. She was a street urchin and then became the biggest earner. She was the biggest earner of the 1960s. She was the first person anywhere in the world to earn over $1 million for a concert. And she was dead at 47. She looked 97, but she was only 47 when she died. So they're really interesting things. In fact, I've always said my mastermind subjects would be Edith Piaf or Stevie Wonder. You ask me anything, I've got it. But because you have to do that work on it. You have to.
So how, again, it's wonderful looking at, you know, this young actress playing Rumpelteazer in Cats in 1990. And now
£180 a week, 16 years old.
Was that what they were paying?
A really useful company paid me in 1988.
And that's not a really long time ago.
It's not, no. It's 30 years ago.
But you look at the early 90s there. Well, it's still the early 90s.
Yeah.
So in front of me, Cats 1990.
Yeah.
And then I look at 2003 to 2005. There you are in these smaller powerhouse theatres, my favourite theatres, playing these, what I would say require extraordinary acting chops.
Yeah.
And you've not been to drama school,
no.
but you can coupe chassis pas de bourrée with the best of them.
Yeah.
What a change. Was that because of the industry? Was that you investing in yourself? How were you able to go from what I imagine some other, you know, dancers, I say in inverted commas, go from now playing leads at the likes of the Sheffield Crucible?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of it is luck. There's timing on a lot of stuff.
Do you think it's luck? I hate it when actors say, "Oh, I was lucky," because
lucky.
all of the best people I know are the most hardworking people I know.
Well, yeah, of course, and you have to be. what's that line that Maxine Peake says? Be serious about what you... Don't take yourself too seriously, but be serious about your job. Because it is a job. As much as it's like, oh, it's showbiz, put a bit of makeup on and dance around. No, you go in at 6:30 for your warm-up, work your tits off till 10:30. It's 4 hours a day. Be nice, do your job, turn up on time, sing the best. Don't be giving it, I'm saving my voice. What are you saving it for? This is it. You know, when if somebody on ensembles singing every occasional word... No, fuck right off. I won't have that, because the sound man knows, and I know because I'm stood next to you, you're not belting it out, and it's not right, because it's not fair. 4 hours a night is realistically in a show what you need to do. Work hard. And so I have worked hard, but I don't know whether it's... And your reputation goes before you. Once you've played, but after doing West Side and after doing Anita for such a long time, and that people had gone, oh, she's in, like I say, she's in the leading lady bracket. And so then you get invited in to a different round of auditions. I don't have to go in at 10 in the morning and do a cattle call, although I love them. I do love a dancing call where you've just got number. Oh, yeah. Number 38, step forward. I'm like, yeah, I will.
You just want to pretend you're at a chorus line.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's how that developed, that it became a reputation thing. And I would hope that people say, AJ, she's a really good company member and she's a good laugh. I'd rather that than, oh, she's great, but she's a silly bitch. I'd rather they said she's a good laugh and she works hard and she's nice and gets on with it. And I think that's helped me through. I really do. And
then you get into my favourite show ever written, Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It really is. It really is. It's the show that any money, anywhere. Right. Do you know what I mean?
You'll go and see it.
Sure, even Russia could call me.
Right in the back of the throat. Yeah.
Absolutely. So two questions there. A, obviously, anybody who doesn't know about this production, it was Sunday in the Park with George at the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Obviously, you originated the role with Daniel
Yes.
Everett. Well, not originated the role, but you...
That first production, yeah.
That first production you did.
Yeah.
And then Jenna took over. What happened there?
Well, I got pregnant. There you go. That's the
there
point.
we go.
I was 34 and we'd been married for 8 years, Graham and I, and God bless him. When are you going to give me a baby? I was like, I better give him a baby or he'll bugger off. So we got pregnant and I realised I would have been, when the move went into town, after it did so well at the Chocolate Factory, and then it was going to move into the West End, to the Wyndhams, I would have been 7 months pregnant playing Dot. So you've got that big bustle at the back.
A trickle of sweat.
Yes, my waters are broke. It would have just been too much. And so I couldn't ask, can you just delay it till I have a baby? No. And I told them, I said, listen, I'm 3 months pregnant. By the end of the run at the Chocolate Factory, I was 3 months pregnant. By the time it had moved, I'd have been as big at the front as I was at the back with the bustle. It couldn't have been done. And I said, well, clearly I can't move with it. That's fine. And the lovely Jenna, brilliant Jenna Russell, did it. And people say to me, oh, but she went to Broadway. Are you bitter? No, I'm not. Of course I'm not. I think Jenna's amazing. Yeah. The woman's phenomenal. And I would support anybody. I've never go, well, it should have been me. Because it wasn't me. You know, you do your best you can do. There's a great Bryan Cranston quote, the fantastic Mr. Breaking Bad. And he says, when you go into an audition room, don't go, who do you want me to be? No, this is who I am. And if you like this, have it. And you need to be brave enough to go, if they didn't want a small gobby northern redhead at this point, maybe the next one will. Because I'm not the tall, willowy blonde, and I'm not quiet and subservient. I'm like, hiya, you're all right, how you doing? I'm going to sing my song, and I'm going to do my thing. Have a good day, everybody, and I'll leave. And if that's what they want, that's what they'll get. And if somebody else gets the role, and if Jenna takes over, or Frances Raffel takes over, or Janie D does it, then that's great. Let's give them a round of applause. They've earned it, and they've done well enough to do it. So I wasn't bitter, and that's why I didn't go into town. I mean, I'm ready to admit I'm not the biggest Sondheim fan in the world.
Aren't you?
No. It's too confusing for me. I have a simple ear. A simple Jerry Herman ear. Give me your show tune that goes like that. Don't give me one that changes to in the middle. Because I'm like, what? It's too clever for me. I'm bright, but that's real technical stuff, and I fully appreciate how amazing it is. And there are points in his music that open out and you go, oh, there it is. But I am a Jerry Herman show tune girl. So the rumour was she doesn't like Sondheim. She hated every second of it. She didn't like Sam Bontrop, the director, who was a lovely man, who is a genius, and his vision that he had. It was a great time, but I was pregnant. I couldn't have done it.
And what's very, very clear is you obviously had a wonderful relationship with the Chocolate Factory, because you then returned, amongst other things, including Hobson's Choice, to do Forbidden Broadway,
Indeed.
which I imagine, so this is 2009.
Yeah.
I imagine that Forbidden Broadway would have been Is this during its new craze, being new to the UK?
It was new to the UK because the only production they'd done before was at Jermyn Street. So they'd brought one over about 2 or 3 years previous to the Chocolate Factory's version of it. And it had been at Jermyn Street. And I think David Babani and indeed Danielle, what's her surname? Trento, thank you. Danielle and David at that point were looking after Jermyn Street and they were just starting the Chocolate Factory. And they'd brought this Forbidden Broadway, this sensation from a tiny theatre in off Broadway over to London. And they'd done it and it had been a great success. I was doing West Side at the time. I can remember going to see a midnight matinee of Forbidden Broadway. And when they did the Cheetah Rita song, my name is Cheetah and not Rita, crying, going, this is hilarious. So then I knew it slightly, and then it was coming round to the Chocolate Factory. We all had to audition. You had to sing a song in the style of, I think I did a Carol Channing. I think I did a Channing, did make Carol. And you just had to chat with the director. Philip George is the director. Hilarious. One of the funniest men you will ever meet. And you just had to be funny. And I'd like to think I'm quite funny.
I think so.
And Babani had said, Mr. David Babani, who I knew from doing Sunday in the Park, said, AJ's funny and she works hard. And so myself, Sophie Louise Dan, Alistair Harvey and Stephen Kinman were the first 4, and we did Forbidden Broadway. The hardest thing you'll ever do, but the most fun you'll ever have with your clothes on.
And have you found that the songs that you did from that production, because of course there are some very, very famous ones,
Indeed.
like the Bring Him Home piss take, for
the Les
example.
Mis section, yeah.
And I somebody told me a story, and I hope to God this is true, so again, please let me know. I heard that in the off Broadway, they used to do a Stephen Sondheim parody.
Yes.
And he came to see it.
He did.
And the story I was told is he watched the show, at the end of it, came through to the dressing rooms, handed them a piece of paper and went, if you're going to do a parody, it should at least be funny, and handed them Into the Words, which is the version they do. And apparently Sondheim wrote those lyrics during the show to parody his own stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know whether he wrote all of them, but I'm sure he would. I mean, so many famous people, in the 80s when it first started, they all went. Liza would be in one night, Gwen Verdon would be in when they did I got Steam Heat, when they did the Steam Heat piss take that she was in. Famously, people would go down there, after they'd done their show, their big Broadway show, let's go and see them take the piss out of us. And they did, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sondheim had a hand in that. I don't know if he wrote it all, but
I remember the Cats, one of my favourite Cats lyric, which is, look at all the pussies, add all the pussies. How many kiddies does he need? Does he want strays or Siamese? I mean, it just... Yeah. As a cat call of cats in the style of a chorus line, and it sounds.
I hope I get it. It's brilliant.
God, I hope I get it. It is superb. And obviously you would then how many times have you done that? Because you did it in the West End.
Yes, we did it at the Chocolate Factory the first time. Then it came back to the Chocolate Factory again. Which this time was slightly different incarnation. Damien Humbly, Ben Lewis, myself and Sophie Louise. Love that woman. And then when it went into town, Sophie was doing Made in Dagenham. Miss Sophie Louise Dan playing Barbara Castle. Yes, Barbara Castle in Dagenham. So Christina Bianco, who's a great impressionist from America, and she'd done the show on Broadway. She came over as we moved into town. So I've done it 3 times in different places.
Because you do there's a wonderful picture of you as Little Red Riding Hood, which is just the most gleeful looking image I've ever seen.
Into the Words with my great big hood on.
And what's really, really lovely, so you then end up going to, you mentioned a little bit about doing Comedy of Errors. Mm-hmm. You return to Chicago.
Indeed.
Again.
Taking the money.
As the role of Velma.
Yes.
And then rather beautifully, you then find yourself at the Union Theatre doing Bells Are Ringing. Yeah. So, and again, as somebody who knows you and anybody's encountered you for the first time, it's just typical, look, I don't shit fivers, but I also want to do good work. Yeah. To go from the Palladium and Chicago and all these amazing places, of course you've been doing Sheffield Crucible and the Chocolate Factory, but at least the money there is, you can afford a pot noodle and a bag of bread by the end of the week. Yeah, yeah. Obviously you're at the Union. I imagine little to no money. Why did you do Bells Are Ringing?
2 words, Paul Foster. Right. So if anybody doesn't know who Paul Foster is, you need to. The man he's a director. He was an actor. When we did Hobson's Choice, there was myself, my sister, and Rosie Craig, who played the 3 sisters. And Paul Foster at that point was one of the suitors. He was a young actor, northern like myself. And he said, I really want to be a director. I was like, I think you'd be a great director. He's the wittiest, most intelligent, most well-read, he's a phenomenon. The man is a phenomenon. And he'd said to me, Paul had said, I want to do this directing thing. It's called Bells Are Ringing. I didn't know it. It's a film I think it was filmed in the early 60s. It's Judy Holliday, who passed away very early. She was, I think, in her mid-30s when she died of breast cancer. Should have been a big star. She would have been, I don't know, she would have been Betty Grable. She would have been a big star. Lucille Ball, very similar to that. And I think it's Dean Martin in the film with her, who played, and it's a story of a woman who, when people didn't have mobiles, it's an answering service. So you answer phone, they used to do, you be your answering service. So for you, I'm Andrew from Erin, can you take my messages? And they would take their messages. Great role, some brilliant songs. Party's Over is one of the most famous songs in there. And myself and Gary Milner, Sally Ann Triplett's husband. Now, Gary and I had done Chicago together. Gary, I love. He's a very, very attractive, handsome guy. And he said, are you going to do it? I said, well, if you do it. So they'd said to us, and lovely Jonathan, I can't remember his surname, that's terrible, who was our producer. Of course, like you say, the Union Theatre is no money. It's literally a travel card. They give you 50 quid a week. Jonathan said, we can stretch to, you and Gary will give you, I think it was 180 quid a week. We'll give you that. And we said, we can afford to do that because it's a great role with a great director. Alistair David choreographed it. Brilliant piece of work at the old Union, not the nice modern one, the one that's under a railway arch where you open the door and it stinks of shit, that one. And it was such a brilliant show to do. I think in total it took 3 months out of our lives with rehearsal and playing, and it was joyous.
Did you find yourself learning things? I mean, you say you learn on everything you do, but did you find that by doing that you learned anything about the Fringe? What advice can you give to young people or indeed more established people that are considering doing the Fringe but perhaps are resisting it for whatever reason?
Let's be real about it. Like I say, I have 2 children, 2 cats, a husband and a mortgage. You can't do Fringe productions every day of the week. You certainly can't do them for a long time. But I just done a big block of Chicago, which is saving a lot of money, putting a lot of money away. And I always try my best to do a tiny production once a year because especially on Bells Are Ringing, we were washing our own pants. You brought in your own costume. Has anybody got like a nice little cardigan, like looks like a 1950s twin set card? Yeah, I've got one. Bring it in. There was a lady in the company called Laura Selwood, who's now her husband, but her fiance worked at a very big private boys' school. So every night she said, give us all your pants because I can put them in the industrial washing machines at the boys. She did the washing. People were putting, we were dressing ourselves. It's the most collaborative art form you will ever have. You haven't got your own dressing room. There's no car home. There's nobody putting your wig on for you. You're doing it all your bloody self. But there's such satisfaction in that. And the audiences really want to come and see something because most of the time it's 25, 30 quid a ticket. So you can afford it. People can go and see, because you'll spend that going to the cinema. Let's take that 25 quid and go and see something at the Union or the Southwark Playhouse or, wherever. And you get a great audience. People really want to go. And the audience are sat on top of you. So you have to be able to do it. There's no faking it. There's no half of us. Because they can hear you. They're sat right next to you. Sing out. You have to actually cry. Sing out, Louise. There's all the crying. There's all the acting. There's all the pointing your feet. It's really, really brilliant. I loved it.
So I'm going to continue on to perhaps Anna's most famous roles after this little message.
Hi, this is David Bedella, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
Now it's time for the Show People platform, which brings a composer or a playwright that you may not necessarily have heard of to your attention. And today it's Ed Zanders, who graduated from Guildhall School last year, where he studied classical composition and is currently working as an MD and a pianist, both at the Guildford School of Acting as well as a freelance in London. Today's song is performed by Eleanor Walsh, who is currently in her final year Arts Ed, and the song is from an as yet unfinished song cycle about people on the tube. It was recorded in Milton Court Concert Hall in 2015. Here is Don't Look by Ed Zanders.
Don't look up. Don't look down. Just look everywhere except his face and make sure not to frown. Though a frown would be off-putting, just a smile could look too keen. Perhaps a little in between. Don't obsess. Don't ignore. Keep your feelings in proportion, unlike all the times before. Though your record isn't perfect, still you hope it could be true. He might be looking back at you. This one's different this one makes a change. Here's a man of taste, quietly different, odd but not too strange, straight but not straight-laced. He's got the lot, a tie and a suit, a case, what not your average commuter, no. He's got places to go. So don't look up like the rest, like the others all around you, looking stony-faced at best. They're avoiding all connection, they're imprisoned where they're sat. Why can't you just be more like that? So don't look, cling to what you've known. It's not worth the risk of feeling all the pent-up feelings, better left alone. Watch the floor and you won't lose him. If you look, you risk it all. So pick the smaller drop to fall. Should you look? Well, you could try a glance, as you know you should, as you know you would, if there were a chance, just a chance. Shoot a look, then you go. Just a look, or you'll never know, or you'll never grow, and he'll never see what he means to me, or what we both could be. So look up, catch his gaze, see it shows as it stays, as it grows, as you rise. Just look into his eyes. A fleeting glance that fades and dies as you disguise what's true, all the while thinking, what's he thinking of you?
What a wonderful song, and I do detect just a little influence of Sondheim there. Ed's work is really, really exciting. Ed is currently writing music and lyrics for a show with Matt Cavendish. He's just been performing in The Play That Goes Wrong in New York, and Ed met Matt through Mischief Theatre as improvisers, and Ed would like to make it very, very clear that he was doing the music and effusively add that he wasn't improvising himself. They're in the process of putting together an initial workshop of the show from the song you just heard, with the hope of a small run somewhere next year. So please watch this space. If you'd like to find out more about Ed and this show about the Tube, please visit www.edsanders.com. If you would like to send something in, please email info@arian-productions.com, where I'll be delighted to share your work with our audiences. A real call to arms, all of the composers we featured so far have all been male. So I would really love to feature some female composers on the show. It's not for the want of trying, so if you do know somebody, a wonderful female composer who works in musical theatre or a playwright or any work where a recording can be sent into the show, please do email me.
Hi, this is Annette Badland, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
Now, AJ,
Yes.
probably the role that must come up more often than not is the Lady of the Lake in
Lady of the
Spamalot.
Lake, yes.
Tell me about that
now,
process.
This is an interesting one because, talking of celebrity casting, as we were on the lovely Chicago earlier, and this is one that, things that grind my gears. You know, it's fine. I'm not stupid. I know a producer has to put bums on seats. I was at an audition the other day. It will remain nameless. But I did say to the producer, I said, I understand you're going to want names for this. I said, but it doesn't have to be. Come on now. I don't think audiences now are that daft that they need the girl who was on the X Factor to play the lead. As long as somebody can bloody do it, let's do that. So, Lady of the Lake. It had famously, apart from Hannah Waddingham, who did it originally, who wasn't at the time a name, she's just phenomenal. After that, they did a lot of celebrity casting. Jodie Prenger, who can do it. I hold my hands up and say Jodie is a celebrity and she can do it. But there were certain people who I felt were given that role because of their celebrity status, and they couldn't do it because you got to be funny and you got to have chops, and you either have one or the other. Or you don't have either. And you're just going, what is this? Why have you done this? Because it's somebody from a soap or somebody from the X Factor. It's just embarrassing. And the producers weren't willing to see me. They really weren't. And my husband was doing the show. Graham's done Spamalot more than me. He did it in its original version, the big Broadway version that went to the Palace Theatre. And then when they scaled it down and did the more kind of panto-y, British way of doing it, he then did that again.
And they scaled it down.
And then they scaled it down. And
down.
now it's one woman playing all the parts. No.
And someone on the triangle.
Indeed. And you've got to bring your own triangle.
Bring your own crown.
Bring your own coconuts. And so it was Stuart Burt who was casting it. And my husband, Graham, had said, why don't you see AJ? And Stuart said, because she's not famous. Because I'm not famous. In a little world I am, but not, Mr. and Mrs. Smith on the street from Billericay who go and see a show. I've mentioned them before. They don't know who I am, and that's fine. But my husband had said, just see her, please. She can sing the living shit out of it. And to blow my own trumpet, I can. So I went in and I sang, and Chris Luscombe, who is a brilliant director, he was like, do you know what? Because Bonnie had been doing it before me, the lovely Bonnie Langford, and Bonnie could do it. Totally, Bonnie could do it. But it had come to that point where just get somebody who can well sing it and can do it and be funny. And lovely Stephen Tompkinson had been cast as King Arthur. He's your famous face. That's fine. So they were willing to see somebody who wasn't that famous. And I remember going in and going, I know I can do this. I just know I can. And I know I'm funny. Just let me have a go. And it was such a great thing to do. And because Stephen Tompkinson was the straight actor and was the famous face, and he's a lovely, lovely guy, and we got on like house on fire. So he was Arthur, and I'm doing the lady, doing Guinevere. And it was really, really great to do. And Michael Palin said, you're funny. He said, you are a very funny lady. Well, I'll take that to my grave. I will take that to my grave. Michael Palin thought I was funny. And it was really lovely to do and work with Graham again, my lovely husband, even though we had nothing to do with each other because he was playing Nutty Lancelot, like the really hard case. So I don't really have a lot to do with him as Lady of the Lake.
And how is that? What is it like doing a show with your husband?
Well, some people go, oh, they don't get on with it. And sometimes directors don't want that. They don't want a relationship in the cast already. But like Matthew Malthouse and Lauren Hall, they work a lot together. And when they're working together, you don't know they're married. They're not all over each other. They're not, oh, babes, can you pick me up something for lunch? They just get on with their job. It's when they go home, that's when they hold hands and all that. And that's the same with Graham and I. We have a laugh, but we're not joined at the hip. He's got his own little gang. I've got mine. 20 years of marriage, I think we're fine. And I have such a great time with him because he's literally the funniest man I know. That's why I married him, because he's hilarious. He's a miserable shit, but he's hilarious.
And what's it like working with the Pythons? I mean...
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
You've got funny bones. I know you love
yeah.
comedy. What's it like to be working with...
Well, comedies, don't they say comedy's a very serious art form?
It is.
Because it is.
It's a serious business.
Very serious business. And if you're going to, anyone can fall over... Around a heart. Don't get me started. Anyone can fall over and go, isn't that hilarious? No, what's the method to you falling over? Or what's that look to front? Or what's that wing acting? My favourite thing is wing acting. When Simon Russell Beale was King Arthur in town, I've never seen a finer performance comedy-wise. And you wouldn't know that man for his comedy, realistically. You'd go, classical trained Simon Russell Beale. He was absolutely hilarious because he did a lot of wing acting, which is, you do a lot of mouthing into the wings, which is highly amusing. If you're just stood at the back of a scene doing that while the main action's going on and somebody's at that going, mouth, it's hilarious. And he was brilliant at that. And so, but you have to really work at that. You have to find out what's funny. And your timing, it has to be, slow burn to the front or one small eyebrow. You can't just go, a mug for 20 minutes. It's too much. So
and it's got to be truthful.
Yeah, totally.
That's the last thing. That's the last thing. Yeah, all of the, for me, great theatre, great comedy, and most of the stuff I've done has always had very, very serious subject matters told through comedy.
Yes.
Reason being is, if you're doing a comedy, if an audience is laughing, they're listening.
Of course.
But it's never funny because someone is pulling a face.
No.
It's always funny because for that moment in time, they are, it's like... Basil Fawlty, I suppose, in Fawlty Towers.
Yeah.
It's only funny because he is playing the situation and coping with it.
Yeah. I mean, the funniest thing I've seen recently is The Play That Goes Wrong.
Yes, of course.
I took my 11-year-old. She is still laughing about it a year later, because that's really honed comedy. And I think that's what the Pythons do. And Eric Idle is very involved with the show. And like I say, Palin comes in and visits. So you get to meet these people. And my husband's quite close to Eric Idle. He's done a lot with him because he's worked on the show so much. And he said, Eric's a great one for that. And he will tell you when it's funny. And he'll say exactly, when you moved that eyebrow on that point, that was better than the night before when you moved the other one on that. They know it. So, take advice from them, soak it up, be that sponge. On
to what, in my opinion, it was my favourite musical in the West End, because I think it was one of the finest productions of a musical there's ever been, which is Billy Elliott.
Ah, Billy, yeah. Once again, it's the same as the Starlight story, because it was off West End. I kind of, and Billy Elliott, is it a musical? Is it a play? What is it? Sweet Lord, I can remember going to see that on a matinee. It had been on in the West End for probably about 5 or 6 years when I went to see it. And I'd heard about it, and I'd heard, Billy, and I'd seen the movie and whatever. Oh my God. From the minute it started, and I sat in a group of school kids, it was like a 13-year-old girls' school that had come to see the show, and I'm in the dress circle in amongst these kids, and they're like, I don't really want to come see this, it's rubbish. We were laughing, we were crying, it was the most exciting thing. And when that kid flies, I'm sorry, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And like I say, I've just finished off the end of the tour, and we were in Germany, we were in Hamburg for a month, and we were all worried whether the audience would get it, whether that's part of their political history as it is of ours, the miners' strike, and whether they'd respond to it, because the accent alone is quite confusing for people who are from Britain, let alone if you're German. But they had subtitles, so they had these big screens at the side that had subtitles. Well, they went bananas for it. And I don't think they've ever seen children do that. I've certainly, and I've worked in shows with other kids, what those boys do in Billy Elliott. For a start, they should be paid 10 grand a week. They're not. Once again, the producers are stopping them. That's why the show, I think, didn't do so well on Broadway, because on Broadway, it's different. They have to pay, doesn't matter if you're 10 years old or 100 years old, you pay your leading actor a certain amount. So on Broadway, those boys were earning $9,000, $10,000 a week, which is why it broke the show, because you have to have 5 billies. The wage bill alone is screwing you. Whereas in this country, we have a very different law for children performers. I've worked as a child performer, so I kind of know the ratio of wage. So they're not really paying those lads what they should be. And when they're 17, they'll wake up and realise, what? But when you're 11 and you're getting a couple of £100, and yes, you're looked after and you are trained within an inch of your life. But what those children bring is remarkable. Remarkable what they do. And each Billy's different. The 4 or 5 Billies that you have, you've got one who's probably better at the dancing, one that's better at the singing, the acting, the gymnastics. But yeah, I've never known kids work so hard and felt so satisfied and real as well. Kids do swear. My kids swear. They're not in front of me because they got slapped, but I know they're at school going, fuck off, and laughing. So, it's a gritty piece of proper political theatre with a phenomenal story in it.
With Billy, because of course it makes me weep uncontrollably.
Yeah.
In fact, the last time I saw it, I took my nan, bless her, purely because I knew that, and she's no longer with us, but I knew what that show would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it does is it showcases those children especially so beautifully in a way that you sit there as a slightly older, perhaps more gnarled, a little bit more bitter human being and go, look at what they are able to do. Look at their freedom, look at their talent, and they're 2 months old, and there they are with the world ahead of them, and there's me sat, holding on to my heart and my, bills to pay and whatever, and just going, the liberty of it and the freedom and the graft that they've done and everything that's ahead of them.
And you're told on the first day of rehearsals, the adult company is separate from the kids company, and they say, okay, Billy Elliott, the clue's in the title, you are here as an adult company to support that child, to make that child look good. So even if you're playing Mrs Wilkes, even if you're playing Billy's dad, if you're playing Jackie Elliott, you ain't the star. Don't think you are. You are literally here to serve that child, because that's what we need to put across as performers for the audience. And it's true. We are there to make those kids look even better than they already are. And that's a great thing. That chucks your ego in the bin. There's not, oh, darling, I need my dress. No, fuck off. It's about the kid. The kid is running up a wall. You are just standing around as Mrs Wilkes with a fag, swearing a bit. It's an easy job. It's a lovely job.
And what's that relationship like with the children? Because, of course, you must get very, very close. But at the same time, of course, child protection laws that are in. And I think there's 4 Billies, or there certainly was in town, that change. And without going into too much detail, I'm aware that there are sometimes security issues with the kids. And I know in town they had the Billy house, for example, where not even the company could know where the children were staying.
We knew it was West London, but we didn't know where. We didn't know their address. There was the lad who was my Billy, who ended up being on Britain's Got Talent last year. His name is Ali Razul, and you want to watch out for this boy. He's phenomenal. Ali I loved that child so much. And he had, I don't want to go into too much detail, he had a troubled life, and he was the most wonderful child, but he hadn't had a lot of affection in his life. So when you have to hug him, when we first did rehearsals, he was a bit uncomfortable. And he's cool as well. He's a 10-year-old lad. I don't want to hug this woman. He's like, ugh. Well, by the end, like when he and I left the show, I was like, never leave me, And I see him now. He's an 18-year-old lad, and we're mates. We're mates on Twitter, and we see each other at various dance things. And he's a good boy, and he's worked hard. And Leighton Williams, who is playing Seaweed now on the Hairspray tour. Leighton I think he was the first black Billy, the first Billy they had of colour, if you will. He's now doing phenomenally well. But I'm sure he will say working on that show was really bloody hard, but it set him a great precedent, and he learnt a lot more about people and relationships with people and with adults, and because you're flung into an adult environment. And I worked as a kid, and I know how interesting that is. But those children.
I was going to say, you must have related from being a 16-year-old kid in Cats to now seeing these kids, going into perhaps their first West End tech.
Yeah.
I've heard stories about the Dance of Anger and how many times the kids are asked to do that over and over again to access that point. And I think it was Kate Graham was telling me about how cast would keep sweets in the wings just because they knew what they were going to go through in the tech to make sure they were safe, but also just almost to the point of exhaustion. And Kate would be feeding, Starburst or whatever from the wings, going, it's okay, they won't kill you. And these kids, their eyes on stalks. Now, before I get into last couple of things you've been up to, I have to ask this because I've already asked you about it, but I know our listeners would be interested. What's it like working with Family Guy's Seth Macfarlane in that, that little fringe venue, the Royal Albert or another.
That big old barn in West London.
Yeah, that little 100-seater. I think they pay 150 quid.
That's quite mental.
I'm obviously joking. What was it like working with Seth and...
Seth Macfarlane, the richest man in American TV history, wears really shitty Converse trainers. I'm just going to put that out there. But like he says, I don't want to be ostentatious. He's not an ostentatious man. He's an animator, and he's nerd. He's proper nerd. He's a lovely man. I've been to his house in LA. It's not massive. It's not huge. It's in a very nice place. He's on the hill, so he looks down. The Hollywood sign is behind. It's that kind of area. But it's not huge. It's not like something out of the Kardashians. It's a simple ranch house. He's very kind. He's very generous. He's very quiet. Very funny. Oh my God, he's funny. I've got some great voice memos where we recorded stuff, when you're in rehearsal, and we're doing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but there's a bit of a scene beforehand where, were you playing footsie with me at dinner last night? So I think the line is, I couldn't reach you from over here across the table. So when we're doing it, I go, were you playing footsie with me at dinner? And he said, I had 2 toes in, bitch. So I got that on tape. And I go, stop it. And he's like, sorry, can we go again? He's just a witty man. He's a very, very funny man. Very generous. But the Albert Hall's quite daunting. That's
and you've done it
bar.
several times. I advise listeners, if you want to fill yourself with 3 or 4 minutes of infinite joy, look up Anna Jane Casey, Tap Your Troubles Away, and I promise you all of your troubles will be gone within 2 or 3 minutes.
But it is great to sing there, and I've said to my husband the other day, have I turned into a complete stagey bitch? He said, yeah, you have, because my mission now is to sing at least once at the Albert Hall every year. And I'm there in November with the Royal Phil, if anyone wants to come. Yeah.
Make sure you. I will pop in the show notes a link to that concert. So if anybody is interested in doing it, that will be on the show notes. And last few bits and pieces before I throw into a different section. Tell me about Flowers for Mrs. Harris, because I saw it. I knew people who were in it. I think it's a musical with some big, long legs.
Yeah, totally.
Wonderful show.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about it earlier. What is it, and what is it about that show?
It's based on a book called Mrs. Harris Went to Paris, and we're just after the Second World War, about 1952, I think it's set, and it's a lady called Mrs. Ada Harris, and she's a cleaner. She lives in a tenement block in like Westland. You know those blocks that now go for millions of pounds? It's literally a tenement block of flats. She lost her husband, so she's a widow, and she cleans for people. She has different clients. She has a photographer client, she has a young girl who wants to be an actress, she has an old major, and she one day, I played the best friend, Violet Butterfield, who's her little mate lives next door. We're all cockneys like that, we're cleaning women, it's hand to mouth, it's proper. And one day, Violet breaks a tooth and can't go and do one of her clients, who is Lady Dance. Lady Dance has a big house on Eaton Square. She says, oh, you're going to have to cover for me, Ada. So Ada goes to cover and sees this Dior dress. It's just at the start of the new look, as they call the Paris fashion, the new look, which was those big, poofy 1950 skirts with a jacket over the top. Ada is cleaning, is never wanted for anything. All she wants is a couple of flowers in a vase at the end of the day, that she gets from Covent Garden Market, the ones that have fallen on the floor and a bit crappy. She sees this dress and she says, I've got to have it. I will do anything I can to get this dress. So it's a show about a woman trying to get a dress, but it's not. It's a show about when you want something so badly, whatever that will be, whether it's a piece of chocolate cake, a lover, a new house, or just a nice bit of clothing, that you will work so hard to get it. And the show takes you on this, I've said the word journey and I hate it, but I've said it. It takes you on a journey of Ada, who lives in a crappy tenement in West London, to getting to the Dior showroom in Paris in 1952 and standing on the doorstep in a little headscarf and a crappy coat going, I want one of them dresses. And them going, you cannot have one of these, you are not a rich lady. And how she charms the people. And I won't tell you what happens because it's just
heartbreaking.
I'm filling up thinking about it.
Yeah.
I've never cried, and I cry at anything. I cry at The Simpsons, I cry at adverts. I've never cried so hard as we did in that rehearsal room.
Mm-hmm.
It's Clare Burt, who played Mrs. Harris, who is a phenomenal performer on every level, vocally, emotionally, everything. She's amazing. She plays Mrs. Harris.
On this, I love that you mentioned Clare Burt. Clare Burt, for me, is one of musical theatre's finest actresses.
Totally.
And I doubt Joe Public even knows who Clare Burt is. And I also question, admittedly, Claire has often been in a situation where, like you, she will say no unless the project is right. And I've been fortunate to have worked with her on various bits and pieces over the years at the Landor Theatre. And she's another example of somebody that, in my opinion, every single musical theatre student in the world should be aspiring to find out about, the likes of Clare Burt, rather than spending and I watch X Factor and Britain's Got Talent. I watch all those shows, but I do question the role models that are out there for people to aspire, for somebody like yourself, like Claire, who has the talent, the tenacity, and has grafted to get where she is, and doesn't have fame as the reward, just has the fact that you and I go,
great work.
If I'm going to do a proper play, a proper musical, doesn't matter. Let's cast Clare Burt. Sound.
Yeah. And Claire is remarkable and was phenomenal in that part, because Richard Taylor, who wrote the music, is the most beautiful, writes lyrical writing, writes a lot of opera, so it's very, not sung through, it's not a sung through show, there are scenes and beautiful scenes, but his music is just so unbelievably passionate and beautiful. And Claire sings this song at one point, Rain on Me. Rain on Me is such a great song. It's about, she just says, dear God, I've had such a crappy life. She's doing the pool. She wants to get the money to have this dress, and she never does the pools. But one day she says, I'm going to do the pools this week. And she sings this song called Rain on Me, just a little bit of luck. She said, I'm going to cry now. Oh my God, I'm such a drama queen. The song says, the lyrics say, there's a cloud of luck floating around. Just a little bit on me, please. Oh my God, so crying.
Oh, you are?
And it's just
you.
beautiful. How she sung that song every night, we'd all be like, oh my God, Clare Burt singing, sobbing like buggers.
Yeah.
We were pathetic. All the women in the show sobbing. Laura Pulford was in the show.
Yeah.
Rebecca Kane, Nicola Sloan. Phenomenal people, all sobbing, watching Clare Burt, Rain on Me. Oh my God, brilliant. So we are hoping, because Mr. Daniel Evans, who directed it, who I did Sunday in the Park with George with, he played George Sarah and was amazing, and now is the artistic director at Chichester.
Yes.
We are praying with all our legs crossed, fingers crossed, eyeballs crossed, that he'll do another version of it, because it was done at Sheffield as kind of a tryout, because it was a new musical. And how do you sell a new musical to a British public? Because they just want to go, have you not got Guys and Dolls again? Jesus Christ, take a gamble. Come on now. So we did it for
and
a
new
very
British musical.
Yeah.
I have to say, not an import.
No,
not
and
so-
a British story about women at the end of the war who fought hard and built a nation that we have now, that backbone of society. And gorgeous, stunning little story. Not a big production number. There's no big da-da-da-da-da. It's a little story about a little lady who wants something, but it wasn't about a dress. It's about a desire in yourself and not being judged for it. And just because I want to aspire to something better out of my own little comfort zone, surely that's a good thing. And it was the most brilliant thing. So we're all praying that we're going to do it next year at Chichester.
I'm praying to see it again. And there were lovely people involved, like Luke Dale, for example, who's
gorgeous.
just a lovely
And
young
Mark
talent.
Meadows, who's a wonderful actor and singer, once again, an older guy, in his late 40s, early 50s. Once again, let's champion these actors. Come on now.
So tell me, what does the future hold?
Future. Well, hopefully, Flowers and Mrs. Harris, come on, Daniel, let us know you're going to bloody do it.
Absolutely.
Because it would be an absolute travesty if more of the world did not see that beautiful piece.
It's wonderful. It's absolutely
Mr.
wonderful.
Yeah, Mr. Richard Taylor, and it's just stunning. So a lot of concerts. We're coming into concert season, like I say, and so I've got a lot of things coming up. Cadogan Hall, I'm doing some Christmas stuff, and they're a nice thing to do. Big frock, big orchestra, shout, get off. That's what I like to do at the moment. I've got a lot of concerts, if I think about it, up until about May next year, and all over the place. Prague, I'm going to Prague.
Very nice.
I've never been. So that'll be lovely. But my kids, my husband, like I say, we passed the baton. My husband's on tour. He's on tour with Hairspray, coming to a theatre near you, till next June. So he's looking after us financially. And I always say, if the phone rings and I'm available, I'll do it. I don't have any airs and graces. I'm not like, well, I need to be playing. I'll do anything. I remember Ruthie Henshaw when we were doing Chicago, and she said to me, what are you going to do next? I said, I'm just happy when the phone rings. And I really am. That's not bullshit. And so if anybody's out there and wants a gobby redhead, I'm there.
Hi, I'm Alexis Gerard, and you're listening to the Show People podcast with the brilliant Andrew Keates. And I mean that, and not just because he slipped me a cheeky 20.
I always joke, rather than Desert Island Discs,
Oh, yeah.
we do a little short section, which I call Whitley Bay Discs, which is if I strand you on tour in Whitley Bay,
Yeah.
and you have to take a few items with you.
Okay.
You can only have one. You, of course, get a copy of the Bible, for firewood.
Yes, for wiping your ass when the toilet paper's run out.
And you also get a copy of Shakespeare as well. I've decided to add, you get a copy of Shakespeare.
Okay, so you can actually find out what the hell's going on in
No,
most
I
of
was
it.
just bored of everyone saying I'll take Hamlet, so I now realise
right,
why
yes.
that's in there.
Yeah.
Firstly, what would be the album that you would take with you?
Ooh, can I have any album? Does it have to be musicals?
Any album, and I'm also going to ask you a little. Number 4 is what musical would you bring?
Oh, okay,
And number
right,
3 is
so-
what play would you bring?
right.
So any album.
So the album is Songs in the Key of Life by Mr. Stevie Wonder. It's
Amazing.
one of the greatest albums ever put together. The range of songs on there is just, if you haven't got it, shame on you. And number 2, go and buy it. So Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder is my number 1 album ever. Yeah.
And what would be the film?
The film, ooh, good one. Well, Shawshank Redemption is classic, and a lot of people say that but that's hard. But no, let's go Shawshank. Let's do Shawshank because I love it. Every bit of it's beautiful.
And what would be the book?
book Perfume by Patrick Suskind.
I know it.
Which is one of my favourite books. Or the Northern Lights trilogy, because I cry all the way through that. Lyra. Yeah. One of my daughters was nearly a Lyra.
Perfume is a really good recommendation.
It's a good book.
Really,
Yeah.
it's a... Oh, that's such a
Story of
fabulous
Murder.
choice.
It's a great book. Have a look if you haven't read it.
What would be the play?
The play. Ooh, now then. It's going to have to be Tennessee Williams, and I think it is The Glass Menagerie. Because I saw a production of that and it blew my mind. So yeah, Glass Menagerie.
And what would be the musical? Not Sondheim, I believe.
No, probably not Sondheim. God bless you, Stephen. Musical. What musical really? Flowers for Mrs. Harris. There you go. Done.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you know what? This is really sad that sometimes when I'm on the tube and I'm having a really crappy day, I've got the Zitz probe and I just put it on my headphones and just cry at Clare Burt singing.
And one luxury item, what would it be?
Ooh, it would have to be, this is showing my age, it would have to be my Temper pillow. I'm obsessed with it. Alistair Harvey and I, who I've worked with a lot, we did Forbidden Broadway. He's now doing Mamma Mia, playing one of the dads. He's brilliant. He always tours his pillow and I used to say, oh, you miserable old bugger, take your bloody pillow. So my Temper curved pillow, because I have a dodgy neck. So there's my Temper pillow.
Hello, this is Steve First, and you are listening to the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates. A man so marvellous, he's putting bums on seats. Whether it be parakeets eating halal meats or premier athletes submitting VAT receipts. It's the Show People podcast with Andrew Keates.
Anna Jane Casey, I have in front of me, from my dark, twisted brain, some of the most irrelevant, stupid, pointless questions that I could possibly ask. Over the next 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you as many of these questions as I possibly can.
Oh, God.
You are allowed 3 passes, as some of the questions might be personal or a little bit silly. You can pass 3.
Shame. Right.
Use them wisely.
Okay.
Use them wisely.
How many are there?
Oh, they're endless. And also, listeners, if you want me to do, because it's become quite popular, if there are any stupid questions you want me to include, do tweet me and I will include them on my very long list that I keep adding to. Anna Jane Casey, let's play Funny 5 Minutes.
45 minutes, here we go.
Anna Jane Casey, sweet or savoury?
Sweet.
What was the last lie you told?
That if you don't brush your teeth will fall out and you'll be hideous. Yeah, you'll have no friends. To my children.
If you had to jump into a swimming pool filled with something, what would it be?
Custard.
If one song were to sum you up, what would it be?
Smack My Bitch Up by The Prodigy.
Would you like to swim with sharks?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, in a cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, in an outfit and one of those metal suits. Yeah.
If you would have an autobiography, what would it be called?
It would be called... I don't know. I'm going to pass.
Pass.
Oh.
Very good. Anna Jane Casey, what's the filthiest joke you know?
Can I really say it?
Yeah.
No, it's really bad. It's really bad. Pass.
Pass. What's the best gift you've ever received?
My husband, when we were married for 13 years, I said, I just want wellies for Christmas. And inside the wellies, he bought me a beautiful diamond eternity ring. Strong work, Graham, strong work.
Yeah. I'm even going to give a...
Oh, yeah, wellies and a ring, strong work.
Anna Jane Casey, how do you like your eggs in the morning?
Fertilised. Carry on.
Cooked by somebody else. Are you an early riser or a night owl?
Night owl, but because of my kids, I have to be an early riser.
What's the strangest thing you've ever put in your mouth?
I went to the Turks and Caicos early in the year and I ate a conch shell. You know the lovely conch shell? I ate its penis. I've eaten conch penis. There you go.
That's the title of the episode. Anna Jane Casey, I've eaten conch's penis. Anna Jane Casey, what's your favourite children's show?
A Danger Mouse. It's back on and it's brilliant.
What's the stupidest thing you've ever done?
I've bared my arse out of many a window and I've peed in many streets in London. Yeah, always peeing in the street.
If you could time travel to any point in history, when would it be and why?
Woodstock. Definitely Woodstock, just to be there.
This is a very famous Show People question. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses.
And the reason for that?
Because you can kick them. They're at your ankles. Kick them. That's terribly cruel. I do love animals.
Who would play you in a movie of your life?
Hilary Swank.
That's a good choice,
She
actually.
looks like me, big teeth.
If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Well, I just want to be Wonder Woman. So all of that she has, just Wonder Woman.
Sum Donald Trump up in one word.
Giant, in one word, cunt, clearly.
What do you think the meaning of life is?
To be happy and to give happiness to others.
What's your least favourite word?
I always say gossip, but I actually quite like gossip.
It's
a good word. Yeah, twat. Twat's not nice.
If you were to order a pizza, what would your order be?
Fiorentina, extra olives and extra garlic.
Also what Kim Ismay orders. Great similarities
Yeah.
here. Have you ever seen a ghost?
No.
Fair enough. What's the lie about you that you've always wanted to clear up?
That I didn't do Sunday in the Park with George because I hate Sondheim. I was bloody pregnant, I couldn't do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, not bad at all. Only 2 passes.
Yes.
Which are quite good.
I still had my third one, didn't I?
You still had your third one, so we'll keep that. Lots of similarities there with both Cassie Jensen and Kim Ismay. Well, sadly, that noise tells me that is all the time that we have left. So before we go, I must say an enormous thank you to our wonderful guest. Please do visit the show notes where you'll find out all about the upcoming concert tours that she's doing. Please give me a We Will Rock You size audience cheer for the wonderful Miss Anna Jane Casey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
AJ, how can people keep up to date with what you're up to?
Follow me on Twitter because I do a lot of yakking on Twitter, and that's where most of my time is, where I reveal what I'm doing. So it's just at Anna Jane Casey. At Anna Jane Casey.
Yeah. And you've got your website as well.
Which is annajanecasey.com, which I must bloody update because I'm sure it's really old now.
Be on your to-do list today.
Yes.
This podcast is produced by Arian Productions Limited, dedicated to giving opportunities to theatre makers. If you love this podcast or if you can support the work we do, please visit our new Show People podcast shop. Yeah, so if you fancy a Show People podcast teddy bear, then visit www.arian-productions.com/showpeople. There's some mad merchandise out there. We do get a cut from what we earn from that. However, if you want all of the money to go straight to us, well then please visit www.arian-productions.com/donate. Maybe you can set up a little monthly donation to help fund the podcast and the projects we do. You can also help us by giving an iTunes review, as that really helps with the magical Apple algorithms. That really helps me reach more listeners passionate about the performing arts and their craft who might like some free advice from wonderful people like AJ. If you've got any comments or you want to talk to me, you can tweet me using @Andrew Keates. You can send me an email to info@arian-productions.com or like the Show People Facebook page at facebook.com/showpeoplepodcast, where you can also join the listeners forum and find out about all things Show People and discuss any of the issues that we raised today, like ageism. Do check us out. From all of us at the Show People podcast, thank you for listening, and just be better.
I went to the Turks and Caicos early in the year, and I ate a conch shell. You know the lovely conch shell? I ate its penis. I've eaten conch penis. There you go.